So in the biggest theater of US, TCL Chinese lo mana Kalki movie 2:30 ki IMAX lo play cheyabothunam, and Nagi is going to join us, and there we go, that's our Kalki poster in the Hollywood street. So okkari chuttupakkala chuppinchani okkari.
Nag Aswin.
Last year's been just a lot of balanced production, 3,000 odd VFX shots that we've been watching hundreds of times. So yeah. Now it just feels like I'm a bit jobless. But, yeah.
So a lot of people in America who are not familiar with the stars of India, can you sort of explain the people, the cast that you put together, and who they are in India? Because for a lot of Americans, they don't know.
If you want.
For sure. I mean, each of them are the American equivalent of an A-list actor. Like, you know, I can't even think of a equivalent because the culture of films in India is just so celebratory and so magnanimous that we literally worship our actors or the roles that they play. Like just watching a film here at the Chinese theatre reminds me almost like watching it in RTC Crossroads in Hyderabad.
Well, the thing that I took from watching it today was hearing everyone in the crowd cheer. And I was lucky enough to see RRR here, and everyone cheered and went like bananas. And it's really great to see Indian cinema being so welcome here in Hollywood at one of the most famous theaters in the world.
It is for sure, and I think what RRR and Bahubali did really opened the doors for movies like ours right now.
So one of the things about this film is I definitely... So one of the things about this film is that it ends on a cliffhanger. And I know that the film has been doing well financially, but has it been doing well enough that you are definitely making a sequel?
Yes!
Yeah, we have to. Yeah. We have to make that sequel. It's one story, and the other half of it is a lot more fun for sure.
I am curious, is the plan, is your grand plan for 2 movies, or is it for 3 movies?
It's for 2. This story is for 2, but the scope of this world and everything in it has scope for a lot of spin-offs.
It was the ending, I don't want to talk spoilers, but the ending sort of says, hey, there's more to come.
It is for sure. I mean, as far as this story goes, we see the Supremes open up now. He's able to control the most powerful weapon, and now the real story seems to start.
So if I can ask, when you were making this film, how much had you figured out of both films in terms of the story, the structure, and where it was all going?
This one is essentially one story. It just was that long that it had to be 2 parts. But it was just one story, and we had the screenplay, and we have the screenplay and the script ready for it. So we even shot about 20 odd days of the second part. But then we realized we were trying to bite off too much, and then we just focused on the first part.
That's actually what I wanted to ask you was, in an ideal dream world, do you think that the second film could be within 3 years? Or do you think it's further away? Like, what are you thinking for fans of, because I want to see the sequel tomorrow.
Good question, good question!
You know, like, when can I You know what I mean? Like, I'm obviously on a vacation, but then, you know.
The first one took about 4.5 years, I'd say. This one will be a lot shorter for sure.
6 months.
Yes. We'll get started in 6 months.
Just for Amitabh Bachchan, it will be 6 months. Next Diwali.
Well, the one thing though is, making this film, you've never made a film with this scale and scope and this amount of VFX. And I'm sure that you learned a great deal making this that you will, you know, take over to the next one. I'm curious if you could go back in time and tell yourself something on the first day of filming, what would you tell yourself to like sort of help you through the production?
I think when we started off this film, we were like solving and figuring out things in each department, and each one, whether it is production design or VFX or even writing to that extent, or action, which was mixed with VFX. So each of these we were trying to do things that we really didn't know how to, and it was a big deal to try to achieve whatever we were doing. So it took us almost a year for like almost every department to get a full hold of what this world was and how they need to deal with it, whether it was fights. I think by the end of it, small fights, like my direction team was able to figure it out. And you know, whether it was VFX or whether it was even production design, whether we needed small props or we needed to turn around the set to look like something else. We were able to do it really quick because we had figured it out in that 1 year of production, so to speak. So I think now everyone's familiar with these words, and we already started shooting a bit of the other parts of the next film, so we already are familiar with that as well. So, I mean, what could I tell myself? I don't know, because we were going into the unknown, but I guess I would tell myself that don't worry, you'll come through.
I'm fascinated by the editing process because that's where it all comes together. What were the big surprises when you got in the editing room? Maybe things that you thought were going to go one way, you turned it and went a different way.
Definitely the fact that this was one story and we were making it into 2 parts was something unique. Was a unique problem basically in the edit or even in the script level. So when we were editing, and also for the most part you have films that are led by one protagonist, which is a very clear protagonist, and he is your hero of the story, he or she is the hero of your story. But in this film we had 4 characters who seem all equally important, and they all need to come together to sort of drive the story forward. So it's not like you could just follow only Sumati's character, or you could just follow only Bhairava's character, or only follow Ashwa's. You sort of had to introduce each of them and where they were in that world and how they're going to come together, and that takes time, and in the edit it was tricky to make sure it flowed well.
I don't know how it is in India, but in America, like they like 2-hour movies. And then, you know, if you're 2:30, it is a long movie. I personally will watch whatever the length of the movie is, as long as it's good. You made a good movie, and I'm just curious. Like, did you have a much longer version? Like, did you have a cut that was 3.5 hours, and you needed to figure out how to get it under 3?
Not so much. I'd say there was probably an extra 10 minutes or so which we had to edit out. And and there's probably like while you're watching it, you can feel a few minutes that can still be reduced. But that's it. It will be too.
But, so I am curious. What was if you can remember, you might not. What was the last thing you cut out of the movie before you picture locked, and why?
There was a bit of an extended fight of Mariam on that boat, actually. That would be probably another 20 seconds or so. Maybe that was the last thing we did. The lady with the laser.
I know that eventually this will be out on streaming, it will be out on Blu-ray, DVD, whatever. Do you want to show the footage that you cut out as like an extended cut, or is it just deleted scenes, or will people ever see it?
Most likely it could be deleted scenes or people will never see it, I'm not sure. But Mariam's so cool, so I might show it as a deleted scene at least. Yeah. She did a really good job actually.
Well, you know what you could also do when you finish the second movie? If you end up, you could always do like the deluxe, show both versions with everything you cut out.
Yeah, it's possible.
So, when you were in the editing room, did you have any friends and family see it? And what notes did they tell you? Who gave you a note about the movie that made you look at it in a whole new way and say, oh, wait a minute, maybe I need to adjust this?
I mean, our team pretty much works like a family. Like the producers are family. Prabhas is pretty much like we've been working together for 4 or 5 years. So the actor also has a very good judgment on the film, which is pretty objective. And we went back and forth along with our edit team and all of these guys. But the tricky part of this movie was it felt like it was just so big in terms of the VFX or the ambition that we definitely could have used more time in the end. So like, you know, we were getting VFX shots till the very end, and yeah, it was one of those, I think all movies are like that almost, but this was one of those where you literally, we had to do a wrestling match with a hard drive to, you know, for them to release it on time, and I'm glad they released it on time. Thanks guys.
I think a lot of people don't realize, with including movies here in Hollywood, that the VFX are often being delivered at the very last second.
Yeah, like I'm saying, a lot of them are probably, because IMAX was the first version that we had to send out. So after IMAX, there was the 2D version that sent out that you could see a bit of a difference in terms of quite a few things. So yeah, I mean, that's not ideal at all, but yeah, that was a big learning for sure, for the scale of this film.
This movie, you have a lot of great close-ups. You have close-ups of eyes. Talk a little bit about, as a director, where and when you wanted to deploy a wide shot, a close-up. Like, how were you know what I mean? Like, are you thinking about those things before you step on set? And how much are you sort of shooting multiple things, and then in the edit deciding what you ultimately want to do?
We usually know what we want to shoot. I have to say that the close-ups and the profile shots are my DOP's George's favorite shots. He loves to use that diopter and go really close to the eye, and always loves to get a close-up profile shot. So those really look beautiful, especially on the IMAX screen. And yeah. Sometimes we really know that this is how much coverage we need, and sometimes, especially if it's action, we do a little more than required.
I definitely have to touch on, have you been to the Chinese theater before?
No, I haven't.
And so, and I don't know, in India, is the Chinese theater famous? Is it, like, do people know?
Definitely after Triple R, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So I just have to ask you, just as a film fan, what does it mean for you to have all these fans here showing your movie in this iconic place?
It's amazing. I would love to just be a fan on the other side also. It's so beautiful just to be here, watch an Indian film in something that looks so historic and magnificent, and a screen that's that huge, because it feels great to be able to watch the film and with the packed house.
Also, this is where Star Wars premiered.
Star Wars premiered really in
At 77.
Wow.
This was the place.
Oh wow.
Whoa.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Woo!
I'm going to be silent for it.
So you see this, actually I want to switch to something else. I read that unlike a lot of movies that shoot for say 80 days in a row, you guys would shoot for like 7 or 8 days, then take a break, and then shoot another 7 or 8 days. Talk a little bit about how you shot the movie, because it's a little bit unconventional.
It is, and it also had a lot of, because all our actors were really busy, and and none of their schedules usually match, so it was also because of that. Uh, and also there was so much action that was happening. So sometimes there'd be another film that the actor's shooting, and we wouldn't be able to coordinate with somebody else. So it was just that kind of a film. It was that kind of a situation, and I think it was that. It's not ideal, but also there was so many different sets and setups that we needed to do, rehearsals that we needed to do in between things. So it was that kind of a film.
When you see the shooting schedule in front of you, what day, what sequence were you like, I cannot wait to film this? And which sequence were you like, how the F are we gonna film this?
I think this, what we call the off-sector fight or chase, which is in the desert with Mr. Bachchan sir and Prabhas facing off against each other, that we shot like over so many chunks and pieces, and it was always fun to shoot. We were always joking that we'd probably finish the film with a shot of the off-sector. And that was always fun. Deepika walking out of the fire was one of my favorite things to shoot as well. Woo! And one thing which I had no idea how it would come out was Kamal sir's room and his whole body, prosthetic, CG, all of that coming together into one seamless thing. So that was a lot of things that had to come together to make that work.
One of the things about VFX is they cost a lot of money. What was a shot or sequence that the audience would think doesn't cost that much, but is surprisingly expensive?
Yeah, most of VFX are expensive, even the simple stuff. I think any sort of human stuff is expensive. Any sort of effects like explosions and things like that are expensive. But what we ended up doing for this film is, though we had a lot of stuff done by 4 foreign companies, there were 14 other companies that are all based in India that we did a lot of work with. So it was like out of 18 companies, 14 Indian companies we worked with, and because we had time, we could keep improving and getting the quality where we wanted it.
So everyone here might have seen the movie for the first time. I don't know if people have seen it more than one.
Three times. Three times.
Some of the people here have seen it multiple times. I'm curious.
Multiple languages.
I'm curious for people who are going to watch it again. Is there any part of the screen, are there any Easter eggs? Or is there any scene or sequence that, like, there's something in the background that most people wouldn't know to look for that you would like to point out?
Which one? Prabhas?
Was he shocked when he saw complex people coming to Shamba? Kind of, I saw it because he didn't tell complex people.
Yeah, he didn't.
He didn't.
Who got up from that sand. So he was Easter eggs. I don't know. I think most people have found most of the Easter eggs. They're not really Easter eggs. They're just little callbacks to, like, when Rajamouli sir comes, he has his sword as his trigger, which is from the Bahubali film, or who pilot? Dulquer being a pilot is a direct callback to Karna's story where he was rescued by a charioteer. So it's like a direct mythological parallel. So small things like that, but I always feel the second time you watch this movie, you watch it a bit newly because you know stuff that's happened. So suddenly you feel like, okay, so now this is a different movie in a way. It's that.
I really want to say this so sincerely. Congratulations on making the biggest sci-fi movie that India has ever made.
Woo! Thank you so much. Yeah, we were all.
It's an incredible achievement, and I'm so happy that the world loves it, and you'll be able to, make the sequel.
Yeah, I mean, we were super, dedicated and put a lot of love into this. But at the end of the day, it's you always have that little doubt before the release. Like you don't know, like there's never been a sci-fi Indian film that's ever come out, and you know, for the amount of money that we ended up spending, you needed small towns in India and people to step out all over the country, not just in our language, but everywhere to step up and go watch the film. And that's what India did. That's awesome. Like, you know, small villages in Rajasthan and Jaipur, small towns filled up in the first weekend to watch a sci-fi film, which is amazing. And I think that's full marks to our audience, actually. Thanks.
I'm really happy for you, and I'm happy for Indian cinema just because of what it means for the future, you know?
Yeah, because now if somebody, any young director or writer like me 10 years ago probably would go with a sci-fi script, which I did in the past also, and they'd be like, this doesn't work, but now you have Kalki, so now...
This is my last question for you, and I'm pushing. Do you already have the name of the title for the sequel, or are you holding that back?
It's Kalki. Yeah, if there's anything else that adds to it, we'll probably release that later.
I understand. Ladies and gentlemen, please a warm round of applause.